So let's take a look at the first article. This is written by a woman to a man who is a pretty blue pill guy. His name's Evan Mark Katz. I'm including the link to the description below. The title of the article is, "Should I Stop Having Sex with My Boyfriend Until He Decides If He Will Marry Me?" Quote, "I've been dating a man for 3 years and he's amazing and we're in love. He told me he loved me first over 2 years ago and he says it to me daily. 2 problems. 1. His ex-wife was diagnosed with breast cancer as of a year ago, and we do not know how long she has to live. He has 4 children with her, and they have been divorced for over 5 years. And 2, he has not asked me to marry him. How long should I wait? I know it sounds a bit cold, ... but should I give him the benefit of the doubt and wait until his ex-wife dies? He tells me he can't get married and hurt his children while his mother is still alive. Should I stop having sex with him until he decides if I'm his future wife? My gut tells me that I should not be having sex with a man if he is not sure if he wants to marry me at some point. Our sex life is amazing. I really don't want to give it up. Thank you, Paula." So it goes without saying that this is really selfish of this woman, but I'll say it anyway. She really doesn't want to give up the sex because she enjoys it. She knows it sounds a little bit cold, but in the end, she doesn't care that her husband's ex-wife is dying of cancer, that literally her husband's ex-wife is careening towards the uncaring abyss. The only thing that she cares about is when she can get that knot tied and get that big-ass ring. So, why is this particularly interesting within the context of the other article that we'll get to? Well, this is a woman writing to a man, and so she couches her language in an intergender way. That is to say, she writes knowing that she's writing to a guy. So she includes details like, I know it sounds a bit cold. That's the biggest one. She doesn't even care that she doesn't even say that it is a bit cold. She says it sounds a bit cold. So that's very indicative of the paradigm that she's coming from. Mr. Katz responds in a pretty predictable way. To his credit, the first 3 lines or so is him lambasting her for trying to use sex as a weapon. He's saying that it's pretty selfish, childish, and petty. So, he starts out the article pretty strong, or his response pretty strong. At the end of the article, he says, quote, "Personally, I'm skeptical. Sounds to me like he's making excuses to avoid marrying you, and this is just a convenient one. However, if you determine after talking to him that he loves you, he treats you well, he wants to marry you, and he promises to do so shortly after his ex's passing, and by all means stick around. It's a lot of ifs, but you should be able to trust your gut if you think he's a man of character. Then again, your gut tells you should cut him off from sex to get him to propose. Forget that I said that last part and get an answer about this guy's intentions right away." So again, this article is sort of rendered semi-useless for us because it's an intergender conversation. We have a woman asking a man about marriage advice, like getting marriage. And so the woman is trying to mask her reptilian intentions through language like, "I know it sounds a little cold." And the man is essentially posturing like has conviction at the beginning, but eventually turns around and supplicates because he knows his viewer base is women. We can't extract as much essence from this article as we can from the next one I'm about to read. So let's take a look at this one. I'm much more interested in articles where it's a woman writing to a woman and they're discussing together, they're in cahoots, because now they don't have to hold any bars. There's no holds barred, and they can really talk about what they mean. So here comes the second article. Second article is on The Feminine Woman by Renee Wade. It's called "How to Get Him to Propose and Marry You Without Looking Low Value." Now, she begins by answering an email from a reader. So here's the email. I've included the link to this one as well, so you can follow along. I won't be quoting most of this article. I'm just going to kind of cut through most of it. It's pretty verbose. But you can take a look at it and read it at your leisure. I highly encourage you to do so. So, quote, "We've been dating for 3 years," end quote. This is the same as before. Interesting time frame. Quote, "We've been dating for 3 years, the majority of which were spent long distance. I recently relocated to be with him, and I want him to propose. He seems to be more focused on buying a home for us than a ring. I'm confused because I have told him that one of my goals is to be settled into a home with a family of my own. Part of me thinks this is his way of setting everything up perfectly. before we get married, but I'm not certain. I'm not sure how to bring this up because I don't want to pressure him. If I did, I'd never feel right about the engagement and marriage, because I'll wonder if he only did it to pacify me. I love him. I'm very happy being with him. I do not regret moving, and we discussed marriage. He knows I want to marry him, but I'm feeling impatient. Mia. Interesting that Mia writes in such a way where, although it may actually sound more diplomatic, it's actually less diplomatic, because if we see what she's actually saying, we parse it out. Here, she's not considering her, potential husband's opinion or point of view at all. She doesn't care. All she cares about is getting her goals that she's got for herself, that she mentions twice. She doesn't want to come off, maybe, as nagging or whatever. She doesn't want to. She wouldn't feel right about the marriage if it was only to pacify her. She loves him, blah, blah, blah. But does she really love him if she's, one, not willing to compromise, and two, not interested in what he has to say at all? Right? We've discussed marriage, she says. So they have discussed marriage. He knows that she wants him to marry her. Like, this is in the paragraph, but she's beginning to feel impatient. She just insinuates that she's priming to give him an ultimatum if her demands of marriage are not eventually met. So Miss Wade talks for a little while about how, okay, well, yeah, you don't want him doing it just to pacify you. You don't want to fight about it. You don't want to get him to marry you based off of a fight. You want him to marry you because he worships you, right? So, quote, what if you could have him not do it to pacify you, but have him do it because he genuinely worshipped you and it hit him that you needed a marriage, end quote. Now, this is the religion of gynocracy personified. Barbarossa has been talking for years about the gynocracy. He's been talking about, the religion of pussy and how women expect to be worshipped. But here we actually see it in writing. So Miss Wade decides to give an example. She says, quote, how do most women go about asking and getting things? Well, they push. Take this common example. A woman's best girlfriend has a beautiful engagement ring. She doesn't have that herself, so she rushes home to tell her man how Sandra, her best friend's fiancé, got her this big engagement ring, this big fat engagement ring. Yet she herself has not received such a thing. No wonder we worry about pushing a man away when we want to ask him to propose. The problem is not that we want more commitment. The problem is how we go about asking. This is female entitlement, wrapped with the victimhood mentality bow. The woman thinks that she is hurt because Sandra, her friend, received a big ring from her fiancé, from Sandra's fiancé. So like a child, the woman in the example runs off to whine to her man about also getting a big engagement ring because Sandra got one. I find it pretty perverse how the implication here is that the man is bad, when the only thing that may or may not transpire is that the man may or may not purchase a wedding ring for the woman. So essentially, the woman is now guilting the man into purchasing something she feels entitled for, which, as we all know, is a wildly marked up in price and utterly useless item. The ring, the wedding ring, it is not a tool. It cannot be leveraged to accomplish anything practical. It is a fucking circular piece of metal that is fantastically marked up. So Wade correctly identifies how putridly disgusting this approach appears to a man with half a brain cell. She's not inviting the woman to consider that if the woman really loves this man, she shouldn't maybe be fucking asking him to pony up tons of his own hard-earned money to buy her some worthless piece of shit. She should perhaps realize that relationships are actually about compromise and both sides contributing equally. She doesn't invite this woman to consider any of that. Right? No men are listening. This is an article written from a woman to a woman, so there's none of that pretense. Her readership is female. Instead, she is going to simply teach this woman how to adopt the mask of demure, submissive, docile, traditional conservative femininity, and to entice him thereby into marrying her by showing him and not telling him that it is what she needs. This creates sort of a strategic ambiguity, right? These articles, written by women for women, are, I believe, of paramount importance for the MGTOW community to understand because they constitute the epicenter of the TradCon commitment think tank. It is a strategic council of women discussing how they might best extract the optimal mass of free shit from men. There is no concern here for coming off as draconian, because no men would possibly ever think to read this article with the title, right? I mean, look at the title. So, she says, don't try and force him, don't nag him. She gives a big long list of ways to nag. Become a woman of high value. Listen to him, basically be super kind and gentle and hot and sexy. I'm skipping paragraph after paragraph here. Again, just summing it up. You can check it out. But the most important part is, where she says, okay, she says this to the woman, quote, dig into the real part of you. Ask that authentic part why it wants marriage, and naturally bring out that authentic desire for the man to take care of you. If he is a masculine man, he has an authentic desire to protect. So she's just, the end quote, essentially, and I'm skipping quotes around here a little bit. She's essentially saying that any masculine man will not be able to resist their masculine urge to, their quote, their need to take care of you, end quote. It's an innate masculine need, she's insisting. Here's the way I see it, gentlemen. Feminists and women on the left will strive and will go to any length to claim that the genders are exactly equal, and will fight for women's benefits at the expense of men. Females on the right, traditional conservatives, will insist that the genders are different, that women are essentially scared, docile damsels in distress, and big, hulking, financially secure men can't resist, of course, their urge to come and protect and provide for these women, and then they will insist on women's benefits at the expense of men. Two sides of the same coin. It's Janus. It's two sides of the same coin. The only thing in common here is that all women are trying to get benefits at the expense of men. It's just different strategies. The goal is the same. So final paragraph, quote, around this time last year, a student of mine contacted me in tears and frustration. She really wanted marriage, but hadn't gotten there. 7 days later, she contacted me because I kindly asked her to use these two words, I'm scared. And she said that she got married. She used those two words, I'm scared, and she got married. Her man could hear and feel her need for marriage from these two words. So have fun, ladies, end quote. Final message of this video. I know that not all the men out there listening to this video are MGTOW. Okay, there's going to be men, I've seen it in the comments section, men have told me in private messaging, they've told me in the comments that they're listening to my videos even when they're perhaps engaged. I'm trying to talk to any men who are considering marriage out there. Look at articles like these, okay? Google, read hundreds of articles like these, articles about getting a man to propose, written by women for women. Look how these women collude with one another and look how they expose thereby the lack of depth of care they have for your opinions, your desires as a man, your wants, your personhood. They are manipulating you entirely for their own goals. And they will freely admit this. Their goals are a marriage and kids. If you don't share those goals, then they have to manipulate you into feeling like it's your own desire, like it's not authentically welling up within you, this desire to have a marriage and kids. They don't care about the man arriving upon the desire to marry of his own accord. They just care about eliciting the proper, effective emotional response in men necessary which will compel him to want to marry her. And they will go, as evidenced by articles like these, to convoluted depths to accomplish this.